Good evening, everyone, and welcome to your daily brew. I've been out for a little while, kind of had a rough 1 week and a half where I've been sick as all hell and played 2 football games. My body's it feels a little bit beat up, you know how it is. So, this is the weeknight where I finally be able to come back to make another one of these videos. And today I'm bringing you my favorite deck of all time. I think that if you see me playing seriously in a tournament or whatever, some version of this Hooru control is what I always bring. The first video I did was kind of a more combo version with the Westwind Herald and stuff, but today we're just playing what I would consider the optimal ladder list. So I want to talk about this deck and kind of how it works. Kind of gonna go for card, but it's more like categories of cards. So first of all, we have 6 of these cards that get you more mana. So the deck is playing 31 actual sources. I think with free privilege rank you can maybe count that as 32 here or there. Maybe if you had if you want, you can do 2 island or 4 island 2 privilege, and maybe that's like 31.8, 31.7, something like that. Those used to get you mana. Privilege rank is really good because it's kind of card advantage. This deck really wants to play mana every turn, and this card just gets you there. Also, it happens that it hits with a sabotage, and that can be sweet. Not very likely on ladder, but I've seen it happen. I don't think you can afford 4 because then like with 3, I think I'm fine with 6 Justice Sigils. I don't think this is overdoing it. But with the 4th, maybe they're just not gonna hit enough of the time. I could be wrong though. It could be better to just go 4 here because occasionally you are stalled out of mana. The problem is that if we cut favor, I would like to go up to like 12 sigils and go down 1 here, and that's even worse. Maybe you could cut a banner though and go up so you cut maybe you cut a favor, cut a banner, go up here, but then you're at the same amount of blue either way. And I don't know, I think 3 is where I want to be, but I could be wrong about that. So that's the mana cards. Then we have the early game removal, 2 Lightning Storm and 4 Lightning Strike. Lightning Storm is really good in some matchups and your worst card in a lot of others, so that's why I like only having 2. This deck is much better with a sideboard, and that's why if you see me playing tournaments, I always bring this deck, because in a tournament setting, I truly believe this is one of, if not the best deck in the format if you have a good sideboard. But without a sideboard, it's not really the same. You kind of have to it's a control deck, so you have to hedge your bets versus a lot of the field, and that means kind of doing if I knew I was playing only Armory, I would just cut Lightning Storm completely or whatever, but I can't do that. So instead we're playing 2. And then 4 Lightning Strike. This is also good early game removal spell versus aggro, but what it also does, which is really important here, is that it kills armory weapons early. And that's the main important part. Also, one more thing to say about favor that's also kind of true about the early game removal spells is that favor is good versus Stone Scar, different burn lists, everyone with sabotage, stuff like that. So it kind of has splash damage. And if you're more afraid, if you're playing this on ladder and there's only Stone Scar, just go up to 4 favors, cut up maybe a privilege rank or something else, and that'll get better. 4 Lightning Strike, good versus Armory, and kills. Sometimes Seraph can be a little bit hard to kill, but with a Lightning Strike he dies just fine. And since he doesn't really do anything until turn 8 unless you're attacking with him, a lot of the time they will just swing and you can kind of get rid of him that way, so that's sweet. Same with Valkyrie Enforcers and other medium threats overall. 4 Second Sight, it's a good card with Thunderstrike Dragon obviously, and also gets you to power in the early game, finds you your single target removal, overall pretty good. And then we have one thing I want to say, which I think I said in the last video too. You don't usually want to save this for Thunderstrike. You don't want to be the Hearthstone player that only cares about like specific combinations of cards, like Bran and whatever it is in Hearthstone. If you can play a second sight and you're not like in the extreme late game, it's almost always correct to just sit on it. Don't, play it. Like mana is way more important than this random interaction here. And then we have free Permafrost, and yeah, the next category is single target removal. And in that category we have free Permafrost, free Vanquish, and 2 Valkyrie Enforcer. What I'm actually thinking about doing on ladder right now is cutting one of the Enforcers for the 4th Vanquish, because I'm seeing a lot of Vanquish targets, there's a lot of plate and stuff. Unless, like, there are some cards that where Enforcer is probably your best answer, and others where it's not great. They all have their own uses. What I want to warn people about is this card falls off if they play plate on a unit, and that can be really scary. So that's like this. I'd say in a vacuum, Permafrost is the best removal spell. But because of all of the random endurance granting cards and stuff, and the silencers, which is also really important, that you can silence away this, means that a lot of the time it's not really a perfect answer, and that's rough. So that's why I'm only playing 3 of that, and I'm trying out 4 Vanquish right now. I could even see cutting Enforcers completely maybe on ladder and just going 4 Permafrost. That is worse versus Armory though, and Armory is something I find myself facing a lot of ladder, whereas Vanquish actually has a bit of utility in that matchup, or at least a bit more. It combines with Harsh Rule, for example, to kill Ikoria and other stuff. And since it doesn't do much else, like, you're down the card in the matchup already, so the fact that you have to spend 2 cards to kill something with Aegis, it's not really the end of the world in that matchup, even though it's very mana inefficient. And then Enforcer, you know, these all that answer different things. You know about it. Then we have the card draw. The card draw is essentially this is also in the finisher category, but these cards get you to your other stuff. Just do a good job of, like, you know. I forgot. For single target removal, there was also free Auric Runehammer. This card is very good versus Armory, kills weapons, which fewer of our other cards do. And also, like in versus big Combray, and in some matchups it's actually like a very good removal spell. In others it can combine with Lightning Storm to take something down. In matchups where, like Felon Control for example, all the time Lightning Storm is pointless, but if you combine these 2 cards you get a decent removal spell, stuff like that. But also, like, it's a removal spell that's also good versus Armory, and that's very important. Card draw, but I would play 12 of this if I could. Best card in the deck. I honestly believe Wisdom is the best card in the deck. If I could play more, that would be fantastic. And then we have the Harsh Rule effects. 4 Harsh Rule and 2. I found this card yesterday, and I think this is what the deck has been missing. It's been really good for me so far. And it's a Rimescale Draconus. It's like Harsh Rule 5 and 6. Plays Permafrost on all the exhausted unit. Kind of gets you back from behind. And when you're ahead or against Armory or whatever, it's just a 7/6 for 7, which is, I mean, it's not a card I would put in my deck necessarily, but a 7/6 flying is still a threat that they have to deal with. It wins the game in maybe 2 turns, free. Just, you know, I think this card is really, really solid in the deck. It's been good so far, for sure. And Harsh Rule, catch-all removal, always good, always great. And then we come to the finishers. From Warden is kind of a survival card. It's a combination of a removal spell and a win condition. Good combo with Staff of Stories. On ladder, I only like 2 staffs, because there was, like, the matchup spread is too wide to know that these are going to be good, even if they're great sometimes. But you usually want to draw 1, so I think 2 is where you want to be. 4 From Wardens, fantastic card. Since this deck has so few removal targets, they usually have removal for it, but it takes a whole turn to kill, and that's fine. And eventually, like, they run out. You only draw so many cards each game, even if they have a lot of removal in their deck. And then From Warden just beats them down. And it's also really great that it's a blocker that's so hard to remove that a lot of the time, like, you can count on this actually holding the board for a few turns. 3 Thunderstrike Dagon, good finisher, great versus Armory. Eventually they just fold to, like, if you can get to the late game without dying to Ikaria, sooner or later they're gonna fold to Thunderstrikes. Like, they can kill so many of them, but eventually it just, the flood is too great and they lose. I went over Draconus and then Channel the Tempest. Gets us to our other finishers. A 4-for-1 if you can do it right. Just feels really good to cast. A great card. Best Sphinx Revelation impersonation I could find. So that's the deck. My favorite deck of all time. I'm really happy I built it because I have so much fun playing it. So I'll see you for game 1.